each other. This is back in like the 1200s. Later on, their descendants became the Spartans. That's what I'm showing you.
Save his world when the very laws he is sworn to protect force him to do nothing.
It's quiet now. It is not a question of what a Spartan citizen should do, nor a husband, nor a king. Instead, ask yourself, my dearest love, what should a free man do?
What shall we do?
What can we do?
What can you do?
We march. For our lands, for our families, for our freedoms.
Come back with your shield, or on it.
Yes, my lady.
We march.
I will erase even the memory of Sparta from our histories.
The old ones say we Spartans are descended from Hercules himself.
The world will know that free men stood against a tyrant.
Old Leonidas gives testament to our bloodline.
That few stood against many.
His roar is long and loud.
Why, honoring the very name of Sparta or Leonidas will be punishable with death.
A new age
Has begun. The world will never know you existed at all.
An age of freedom.
All his 40 years have been a straight road to this one gleaming moment in destiny.
We are with you, sire! For Sparta! For freedom!
There's one radiant clash of shield and spear, sword and bone and flesh and blood.
To the death!
And all will know that 300 Spartans gave their last breath. It's an honor to die at your side. To defend it.
It's an honor to have lived at yours, my love.
Our king, Leonidas! Leonidas and the brave 300!
So now this is from another book called The Heritage of the Anglo-Saxon Race by M.H. Geyer. This is history that they don't tell you about in the Bible. The Bible is linked up with the history of Egypt and many different lands. It says by 1296 BC, Dan had a large shipping trade and started conquering and colonizing territory outside Palestine. The book of Joshua, 47 chapter, 19 chapter, 47 verse. The inheritance that fell to this tribe from Ashkelon to Joppa was far too small to satisfy these men of turbulent adventurous spirit. With a short time, therefore, 600 of them with their families marched off towards and conquered Lashim and Laish, right, following their tribal custom, renamed respectively Dan and Manhandan, and after the name of Dan their father. I'm going to jump to the point. The Dan colonists of Laish, Israelites, became the Danites of the north, known to names of Dan, Dardan, and the Danes. So it shows you these names, Israelites, that went up in there and became the Dardanians. We just read Darda coming out of that history. The Great Danes of Europe, the Danish. The rest of the tribe renamed south. The south remained south because Dan broke into two groups. One group went over here to Javan, what we read in the Bible. One group stayed in Israel, right, and later went up north and became known as Dan and Danan. Then it says the northern tribes later on did not long remain content with their new territory, right? They later on, now this is the same guy and the other one, W.E. Gladstone says the siege of Troy was undertaken by the Dani or Dan settlers in Greece. Siege of Troy. So the Achaeans, Greeks, in the Trojan Wars were what? Danite settlers in Greece against the Dardanii, and that these two peoples were originally one. So these were two Danite families fighting each other right here. The Trojans and the ancient Greeks were two Danites fighting each other. This is back in like the 1200s. Later on, their descendants became the Spartans. That's what I'm showing you. Dislodged from the plains of Troy by the Danite forces of Greece, the Dardanians went to Byzantium, So I'm just showing you the history of how Dan became the ancestors of the Trojans, of the ancient Greeks who fought them, Helen, Achilles. Now let's go, I'm talking now, let's go into the record. Homer, the Iliad. We just mentioned, Danae is mentioned 147 times in the Iliad. Let's go in the Iliad in the glossary and look that up. Actually, you want to look up this name right here. I'm going to link it all back. Okay? Lacedaemon is in the Iliad. City, kingdom of Menelaus in the southern Peloponnese. Let's look up the word Menelaus. So Lacedaemon is in the Trojan stories of the Iliad. Lacedaemon, as we know, is an ancient name of, or name also of Sparta, which was the leader of the Dorians that came and conquered Greece from the Japhet Mysians and the Javan, who are of Japhet. Let's go look at Menelaus. Okay, Menelaus, Achaean. We just read the nation name of Greece was, one of the names of Greece was called Achaea, son of Atreus, king of Lacedaemon, brother of Agamemnon, husband of Helen. So here, Helen of Troy, Agamemnon were all Lacedaemonians coming out of that line. Okay? So now we're going over here to look up this word. Let's go to the Achaeans. The Achaeans, Greeks and their allies against Troy. So now let's look up the Trojans, all in the same book. Who are the Trojans? People of Troy, the allies of Troy, arrayed against the Achaeans. Tros, ancestral king of Troy, son of Euthydemus, father of Ilus. So Ilus goes back to this brother who they named the Iliad after. Troy comes from Tros, an ancient ancestral king of Troy who founded that land, and he was an Israelite, a Danite, because they were both Danite families. Achaeans and Trojans were the same people, Dan, fighting each other, southern Danites, northern Danites. Troy, capital of Trod, city of Tros, and the Trojans, alternatively named called Ilium, or Iliad, or Ilus. And this was an ancient brother, Etronius, who came out of the line of Tros. So it was Tros named Troy. Troy came out of, Lacedaemon. He had a son called Erythonius. Let's look up Erythonius. Kind of hard to pronounce it, but we're going to look it up. This is black history we're learning here. Okay? Let's look this up. Erythonius. Okay. Should have had it marked, but we got to find it. How do we spell that? E-R. Should be over here. Here we go. Erythonius. Right? This is in the Trojan stories of the Iliad. Son of Dardanus, father of Tros, forebearer of the kings of Troy. Remember those names. Dardanus, Tros, Troy. Look up Dardanus. Let's go into it. Okay? Dardanus. Right? Son of Zeus, father of Etronius, forebearer of the Priam and the kings of Troy. Priam was the father of Hector, who fought Achilles. He was a Dardanius. Now, Dardanians, people descended from Dardanus. Okay? So they were called Dardanians. Now you have, we just read in the history here about Dan coming out of, no, here we go, right here. About, look at this. These Dorians were Danites and men of Judah of the line of Darda. See? or Danans of Argos. The Danans, the Dani, okay?
Greece was not a single unified nation, but was divided into hundreds of small Greek city-states, the most powerful of these, Athens and Sparta. Ultimately, the Spartan king, fighting in the front line, fell dead in battle. Xerxes ordered his men to bring him Leonidas' head on a pike, but the Spartans, wanting to give their king a proper burial, refused to give up his body. A desperate skirmish broke out over control of Leonidas' body. The Spartans replied, "We will die, but Greece will live." Word quickly spread in Greece of the heroic last stand of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, and King Leonidas became a martyr. The Battle of Thermopylae stalled the Persian advance long enough for the assembly of a combined Greek force, which defeated the Persian navy at Salamis and Mycale, and the Persian army at Plataea. The memory of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae was so fearsome that when the Persian army engaged the thousands of Spartan hoplites at Plataea, many Persians broke ranks in panic and ran, fleeing the field of battle. The Greeks pursued Xerxes and his troops across Greece as the mighty Persian war machine swiftly retreated to Asia. Greece had triumphed. A heroic last stand at the narrow pass of Thermopylae, as well as the battles of Plataea, Salamis, and Mycale, occurred only 30 years before the dawn of the Golden Age of Athens. What would Western civilization be like if not for their sacrifice? Without the culture emerging in Athens after 480 BC, it is possible there would have been no Socrates to inspire the development of classical philosophy. Plato's Academy would have never existed, nor would Aristotle's Lyceum. Homer's epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, may have been forgotten, fading into the abyss of time. Euripides would not have written his plays, nor would Euclid have developed his geometry. Who would have discovered the engineering principles of Archimedes, and when? Herodotus and Thucydides may have never developed the modern approach to historical inquiry, and historians would have written a completely different history. Athenian trade, commerce, and wealth would have never reached its zenith in the 5th century BC. Democracy would have been eradicated instead of reaching its pinnacle during the era of Pericles around 460 BC. The Parthenon would have never been erected. Alexander the Great would have never conquered Persia, Mesopotamia, and Egypt. The Library of Alexandria would have never even existed. Would the Persian war machine have marched through Europe and conquered the Roman Republic before it became an empire? Would Carthage have fallen to Xerxes instead of Scipio, and Hannibal never have been born? Without classical Greece, what would serve as Rome's cultural inspiration? How would England, France, Spain, Portugal, and many other countries be like if they were never Roman provinces? How would Viking, Celtic, German, and Tartar culture be changed if the Persian Empire were at their frontiers instead of Rome? How could there be a Renaissance in Europe without classical Greece and Rome to serve as the inspiration? What would America be like without Anglo-Saxon, Greco-Roman influence on Jefferson, Franklin, Hamilton, Washington, and the other founding fathers? The decision of one man to stand and fight changed the course of human history.